On a stormy Sunday morning, the massive hall of Holy Ground Ministries buzzed with life as a diverse crowd gathered, anticipation crackling like the thunder outside. Conversations rippled like restless waves, heads turning and necks craning, all trying to catch a glimpse of Prophetess Patricia, famously revered as Mama Sight It All. Her presence carried an air of mystique. Some whispered she could pierce straight into a person's soul, unearthing secrets buried too deep for anyone else to see. Others fervently believed she held the divine ability to commune directly with God. Yet today, an unusual, almost tangible tension lingered in the air, setting the stage for something extraordinary. Suddenly, a scream echoed from the side of the hall. Agatha, one of Mama Sight It All's trusted aides, rushed to the front, wide-eyed and shaking. "She did it again! Mama healed a cripple!" The congregation erupted in cheers, but Elizabeth, a quiet attendee who had been coming for months, noticed something strange. Just days before, she had seen this very crippled man walking around the market. Doubt clouded her heart, but who would believe her? Mama Sight It All was powerful and untouchable. Her followers would fight to protect her. Years ago, Patricia had been a simple girl from a humble, God-fearing family. Her parents raised her to be honest and devoted, instilling in her the importance of walking in the light. She shone as a beacon of hope for their church, leading Sunday school, organizing prayer meetings, and singing in the choir. Everyone adored her, and many believed she was destined for greatness. However, no one could foresee the dark path her life would take. After struggling for years to build her ministry without success, Patricia attended a grand conference for pastors. There she met several famous preachers who seemed to possess a secret power. The leader, Pastor Benji, pulled her aside. "You are trying to be godly, but you will never make an impact until you are willing to sacrifice." He spoke of a special ceremony that would require a significant offering from her. Initially hesitant, Patricia was ultimately swayed by his promise that it would grant her the influence she desperately sought. Driven by her desire for success, she agreed. That night, she participated in a strange ritual, giving up her chance to ever have children as an offering. The pastors gathered around, chanting while Patricia's heart pounded with fear and anticipation. When it was over, she felt a dark power settle around her like a cloak. Something had undeniably changed. Upon returning from the conference, Patricia's fortunes began to shift. People flocked to her services, and soon the entire country knew of Mama Sight It All. Her church swelled with members from every corner of Nigeria and beyond. Her fame and wealth grew, but this was only the beginning. Unknown to her followers, Prophetess Patricia was far more than a deceitful prophetess. Beneath her human exterior lay an ancient, sinister secret. Patricia was a half-human, half-serpent hybrid, whose origins traced back to a mysterious underwater coven she had joined after entering the occult. Every midnight, she would disappear from her luxurious mansion, shedding her human form to transform into a creature with dark powers. This marked her journey to the underwater kingdom, where her true allegiance lay. She would slip silently into the river behind her mansion, vanishing beneath the waters as if swallowed by the earth itself. There, in the depths, she would join her occultic brothers and sisters, other pastors and prophets who had pledged themselves to the marine kingdom. They shared twisted wisdom, dark strategies, and skills to keep their congregations bound in deception. For Patricia, this was where she drew her power. The Marine Queen, a towering figure with serpentine features, bestowed upon her strength, vision, and the ability to see into the lives of her followers. But there was a price. Her soul, her humanity, and most disturbingly, her womb. Patricia's sacrifices to the Marine Kingdom had left her barren, a trade she had willingly made to gain authority and influence in the physical world. Back in her church, no one suspected a thing. To her followers, Patricia was a holy prophetess, oblivious to her midnight disappearances. Her congregation continued to grow as people flocked from far and wide, desperate for miracles, healing, and deliverance. Those seeking her favor were willing to pay any price, from cash offerings to livestock and even precious family heirlooms. Patricia's ministry had become a relentless machine, consuming people's wealth and hopes alike. Within months, she began implementing strange new practices. Each member was handed a mirror, which she called the mirror of life. "This mirror," she would declare, "is blessed by the Almighty Himself. Every morning, look into it, speak to it, and you will see parts of your spirit that need healing." Her congregants cherished these mirrors, believing they were on a path to spiritual growth. In reality, the mirrors were tools connected to the marine world. Through them, Mama could peer into her members' lives, studying their weaknesses, secrets, and fears. One Sunday, Mama called a young woman named Kemi to the front. "Last night, you argued with your husband about his job, didn't you?" she said, a sly smile crossing her lips. Kemi gasped. "How did you know?" The congregation erupted into a frenzy, marveling at Mama's ability to know every detail of their lives. In truth, she had used her mirror to summon Kemi's spirit the night before, gathering all she needed to make her revelations sound divine. Soon, the church introduced holy water and miracle oil, sold at exorbitant prices. Patricia would wave her hands over the items, claiming they could cure any sickness, fix any marriage, and even bring financial blessings. When Elizabeth saw a struggling mother give her last savings for a tiny bottle of miracle oil, she clenched her fists, feeling her suspicions deepen. The following Sunday, Patricia's voice echoed through the church as she scanned the congregation with piercing eyes. Her gaze landed on a young man named Obiora, a quiet, newly returned graduate visiting with his mother. Having heard of Mamacite at all, and her supposed divine revelations, they thought it wise to seek a blessing. Patricia's face lit up as she beckoned Obiora forward. "Young man, please come forward." Obiora hesitated, but his mother nudged him, whispering, "Go, this could be your blessing." As he stepped up, Patricia raised her hand in a gesture of divine revelation. "The Lord has revealed something troubling to me, my son." The congregation fell silent, hanging on her every word. Patricia looked at Obiora with a heavy gaze, shaking her head slowly. "Young man, your life battery is running dangerously low. I see darkness ahead if nothing is done." Obiora's heart began to pound. "Life battery?" he thought, confused. But he could see Patricia's grave expression. "Mama, please, what does that mean?" Patricia placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, lowering her voice. "It means, my son, that if something isn't done quickly, you won't live to see your 30s. Marriage, children, all of that will be lost to you unless you act now." Obiora's face turned pale, and his mother gasped, clutching her chest in fear. Patricia continued, raising her hand as if bestowing hope. "The Lord has provided a solution. There is a way to renew your life battery, to ensure you live a long and prosperous life." She leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing with intensity. "You must make a sacrifice, a powerful seed, something that costs you deeply. For the Lord blesses those who give from their heart." "What kind of sacrifice, Mama?" Obiora's mother stammered. Patricia nodded as if she had expected the question. "The Lord has directed me that your son's life can be renewed with the sacrifice of a cow. Not just any cow, but one that symbolizes new life, strong, healthy, and without blemish." Obiora's mind reeled. "Mama, I don't know where to get a cow now." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Do not worry, my son. The Lord understands. You need not go out and find a cow yourself. You can simply convert this sacrifice into a seed. Give the amount, and I will take care of the rest." The church has a way to handle these things. You just need to be obedient and trust in the word of the Lord. Obiora's mother urged him to comply. Just do what Mama says. Your life is worth more than any amount of money. Reluctantly, he agreed, pulling out his church book and writing a large sum. Patricia accepted the check with a satisfied smile. Your obedience has pleased the Lord. Your life is now in God's hands, and He will reward you for your sacrifice. Still shaking, Obiora returned to his seat, his mother clinging to him and thanking the prophetess profusely. What he didn't know was that Patricia had no intention of buying any cow or offering any sacrifice. Instead, she took the money straight to her ongoing project fund, adding it to the luxurious mansion she was constructing on the outskirts of town. This wasn't the first time she had used such tactics to squeeze offerings from her congregation, and it wouldn't be the last. Elizabeth watched from a distance, gathering more stories like Obiora's. She saw the pattern and realized these prophecies were calculated lies designed to drain her followers financially. Determined to expose Patricia's wrongdoing, she prayed that her efforts would one day set people like Obiora free, opening their eyes to the truth. Despite her growing doubts, Elizabeth continued attending the church, quietly observing. One service, she noticed something she couldn't ignore. An elderly man in a wheelchair rolled up to the altar. Mama Sight-It-All placed her hand on his forehead, murmuring a prayer. Suddenly the man stood up, shaking with supposed new strength as the congregation erupted in joyous shouts. However, Elizabeth recognized him from a street market. He wasn't disabled at all. He was an actor paid to pretend for this miracle. Over time, Patricia became one of the wealthiest women in the area, living in a mansion filled with gold-plated furniture, expensive cars, and personal staff, all while claiming it was a reward from God. Elizabeth knew that no blessings had come for her poor neighbors, who continued to give until they had nothing left. Amid all her schemes, Patricia wielded her power not only to deceive, but to control lives, even breaking up families for her own selfish desires. She took a particular interest in wealthy, influential men who attended her church, especially those who could be easily manipulated. If she set her sights on a married man, she would concoct visions and divine revelations that cast doubt on his wife, creating chaos in their households. During one scandalous service, Patricia singled out a successful businessman named Mr. Okiki. She called him to the front, dramatically raising her hand as though receiving a divine message. "Brother Okiki," she declared, "the Lord is showing me a troubling vision, a dark cloud surrounding your household. Someone close to you, someone you trust deeply, is working against your blessings." Mr. Okiki looked alarmed, his eyes wide with shock and fear. "Prophetess, who could it be?" he asked desperately, eager to protect his fortune and family. Patricia leaned in, lowering her voice to a solemn whisper. "It's your wife. I see her spirit entangled in a web of envy and greed, blocking your breakthroughs." As expected, Mr. Okeki appeared alarmed. "But fear not, Mama Sight-It-All is here to help you. With my special guidance, I can break this curse." Over time, Patricia convinced Mr. Okeki that his wife's supposed negative energy was the reason for his business struggles. She encouraged him to distance himself emotionally, assuring him that deliverance would come if he followed her instructions. What she didn't tell him was her true motive, to draw him closer to her because he was vulnerable. She began sending him private messages, inviting him to special prayer sessions at her mansion, under the pretext of purging his spirit of his wife's supposed bad influence. These sessions soon took a different turn as Patricia manipulated Mr. Okeke, feeding him flattering words and assuring him of a life filled with blessings if he satisfied her desires. In no time, Mr. Okeke found himself entangled in an affair with Patricia, convinced that his loyalty to her would bring him divine favor. This pattern repeated with other wealthy men in the congregation. Elizabeth, who had been investigating Patricia, grew increasingly disturbed by these manipulative tactics. This was not just spiritual deception. It was a web of lies that destroyed families and tore relationships apart. Patricia's actions were predatory. Another unsettling practice involved Patricia claiming she could bless any jerry can of water, transforming it into a holy remedy for all problems, illness, financial troubles, and more, for a fee. People would leave their jerry cans in her office for prayer. Behind closed doors, Patricia would simply pour in salt and sugar, saying, "Now take this water home and drink from it each day." The salt and sugar created a slight change in taste, fooling congregants into believing the water was truly blessed. One evening, Elizabeth overheard a conversation between two of Patricia's closest aides, Felix and Linda, discussing the jerry can trick. "Can you believe they are paying that much just for a dash of salt and sugar?" Linda laughed, shaking her head. Elizabeth felt a surge of fear, but stood her ground, her heart filled with the courage to see her mission through. She knew Patricia's days of deception were numbered. Driven by curiosity and courage, Elizabeth decided to follow Patricia one fateful night. She waited in the bushes near the river behind Patricia's mansion, clutching her phone tightly, hoping to capture whatever dark secrets lay hidden. The clock struck midnight. Elizabeth saw Patricia emerge from her mansion, moving gracefully toward the river, her steps almost gliding across the ground. Elizabeth's heart raced as she watched Patricia pause at the riverbank. The prophetess looked up at the sky and began chanting in a strange, ancient language. Then, before Elizabeth's eyes, Patricia's form began to change. Her skin shimmered as scales emerged, covering her body, and her legs melded together. Her eyes glowed as she slithered silently into the water, disappearing beneath the surface with a splash. Elizabeth gasped, barely able to process what she had seen. She realized then that Patricia was not just a fraud. She was something beyond human, something malevolent. Elizabeth stumbled back, her mind racing. This truth was more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. The next morning, Elizabeth returned to the church, her spirit heavy but resolved. She knew her mission was not just to reveal Patricia's fraudulent practices, but to expose the dangerous forces she was harnessing. However, Patricia, aware of Elizabeth's growing suspicion, took note. Her piercing gaze lingered on Elizabeth during the service, her smile sharp as a blade. During the altar call that day, Patricia announced a special blessing for one person in the congregation, called to serve a divine mission. She fixed her gaze on Elizabeth, who froze as Patricia called her forward. "Elizabeth, come forward." Patricia's voice was smooth but laced with an undertone of menace. "The Lord has shown me that you carry a heavy burden. Come, let Mama see it lifted from you." Elizabeth's heart pounded, but she stepped forward, refusing to reveal her fear. As Patricia laid a cold hand on her forehead, Elizabeth felt a chilling sensation run through her body. She heard Patricia whisper, "You are treading dangerous waters, my child. Be careful, for some secrets are not meant to be uncovered." Elizabeth swallowed hard, but refused to back down. She would continue her mission to expose Patricia, knowing the stakes were higher than she had imagined. There was no turning back now. Elizabeth's courage became her guiding light as she continued to gather evidence against Patricia. With every passing day, she uncovered more layers of deception and dark manipulation, confirming that Patricia's reach extended beyond mere monetary gain. It was now clear to Elizabeth that her mission was about more than just exposing Patricia's lies. It was about freeing innocent souls bound by Patricia's sinister practices. When Elizabeth finally released her gathered recordings, photos, and testimonies to the media, the world was shocked. Reports spread like wildfire, exposing Patricia's deceitful miracles, staged healings, and occult connections. Congregants who had once revered her now felt betrayed by the person they had called Mamacite it all. Many wept openly, mourning the years and money they had poured into her ministry, only to realize it had all been a carefully orchestrated illusion. In her final address to the church, Elizabeth spoke to the congregation, offering words of wisdom. My brothers and sisters, this experience has taught me something crucial. Just because someone calls themselves a prophet or a servant of God doesn't mean they truly are. We must be discerning and vigilant, seeking the truth beyond appearances. Not every church or prayer house represents God's light, and not everyone who claims to be a pastor is genuine. Elizabeth reminded everyone that while Patricia's story had cast a dark shadow, it did not mean all spiritual leaders were deceivers. There are true servants of God, men and women who work tirelessly in humility and sincerity to bring God's love and truth to His people. They don't ask for wealth or demand strange sacrifices. They simply live in a way that reflects the goodness and mercy of the Almighty. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please consider liking, commenting your thoughts, and subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much, and see you in my next story.